I was clearing the 5.3 Abyss for the 20th time the other day, and I was running Fischl, Xingqiu, Sucrose, and Xiangling, which is a 4-star variant of the Sukokomon team, and I noticed I was clearing faster than I did with my Sucrose National team. I cleared a few more times with this team, and the same thing, I kept clearing faster with this Sukokomon variant than with Sucrose National. Thought this was strange. I used to run this team a long time ago, and it didn't used to clear faster than Sucrose National. So I thought to myself, maybe the new overload buffs from Genshin's 5.2 update are pushing this team over Sucrose National now. To help verify this, Benchix, shout out to Benchix, in the Genshin official Discord set up a GCSIM of this team and compared it to the Sucrose National simulation. Let's take a look at the simulations. If you're not familiar with GCSIM, GCSIM is a tool that theory crafters use in order to calculate stats about a team, most importantly the DPS of the team. In order to use GCSIM, you provide the team, the talent levels, the artifacts, the weapons, and the stats. And then in addition to that, you also provide the rotation that the team is going to do. And once you've done all that, GCSIM will run the rotation some number of times. In this case, we're running it 1,000 times. And then it'll calculate all these stats for you. Now let's take a look at what we're working with here. We have all C6, Sucrose, Xiangling, Fischl, and Xingqiu. Sucrose is on 4-piece VV with R3 sacrificial fragments. And the reason why this is R3 and not R5 is because theory crafters have to abide by certain standards when choosing refines for weapons. And so for the rest of this video, the weapons will be abiding by those standards. This is a slightly different build than she would have in National, where she would be using TTDS or Wandering Evenstar, but not too different. Xiangling here is on 4-piece Crimson Witch with Katane Crossspear, and this is very different from National, where she would normally be running 4-piece Emblem with the Catch. And the reason why she's on this artifact set is because she's actually running a pure EM build, so that she can do a lot of overload damage. She has 150 ER in order to burst every rotation, and a little bit of crit, but not too much crit. Fischl is running a 4-piece Golden Troop with R5 Chainbreaker. Normally she would be running R5 Stringless, but because I can only use R3 Stringless, Chainbreaker is a little bit stronger here. And then Xingqiu is on 4-piece Noblesse with Favonius, and he's on Noblesse duty because Bennett's not here, and Bennett can't be on Noblesse duty. And so taking a look at the stats for the team, we have 53.8k DPS in single target, very nice. The majority of the team's damage is held by Fischl, with Xiangling not far behind, and Xingqiu and Sucrose are at about half that. The majority of the team's damage is Overload from Xiangling, followed by Electrocharge from Fischl. Xingqiu and Fischl are also contributing significant talent damage, along with Sucrose's Swirls and Xiangling's Vaporized Pyronado. Now this overload damage from Xiangling is extremely high, but when I was running Abyss earlier with this team, I was actually not running pure EM Xiangling. My Xiangling was just my normal crit Xiangling build with an ER Sands and Katane Crossspear, so I had less overload damage and a lot more Pyronado damage. But either build you go, you'll be doing a significant amount of damage with Xiangling. And here we can see the energy generation of the team. Not too important, but it's good that we can confirm that our team has enough energy to perform the rotation. And now let's take a look at the rotation that we're running for this simulation. We're starting with a for loop. We're going to run this rotation 4 times. Fischl starts with her skill, then we go to Xingqiu's skill burst, Xiangling attack to activate Xingqiu burst, then we do Xiangling burst skill, then we do Sucrose attack into a skill if the skill is ready. And if you're familiar with a Guoba Swirl, this Sucrose skill will activate a Guoba Swirl. And if you're not familiar with what a Guoba Swirl is, we'll go over what that is later in this video. But just know that a Guoba Swirl allows Sucrose to swirl Pyro when she normally would not be able to, and this lets her do both more damage and also activate VV on Pyro. Then afterwards we do another couple attacks into another skill if it's ready, once again another Guoba Swirl, and then we do burst if it's ready. And if any of these skills or bursts are not ready, we instead replace it with 2 normal attacks and a charge attack. Next we go to Fischl, do 2 attacks and then burst to refresh Oz. Then we go to Xingqiu to attack a couple times to activate the Favonius again. Then we go back to Sucrose, 2 attacks, charge, 2 attacks. Then Xiangling, 2 attacks and then activate Guoba again. Back to Sucrose, attack, skill for once again a Guoba Swirl. And then we do more attacks and charge attacks with Sucrose until we're ready to reset the rotation. Now that we've looked at what the rotation is, let's go ahead and see what happens if we run this rotation in multi-target instead of single target. So you'll see here we're working with 3 targets instead of 1 that we were working with before. And you can see that this damage here is 135,000 for 3 targets. As you might expect, because this is a team with a lot of swirl damage, this team is going to scale better with the number of enemies than a single target team would. Now let's take a look at the Sucrose National team. We have C6 Bennett with Alley Flash for its high base attack. He's got good crit stats to become a nice quick swap DPS for this team. Sucrose is on 4-piece VV with Wandering Evenstar in order to buff the whole team, as opposed to TTDS, which would only buff Xiangling. Xiangling's on EOSF with Catch, good crit stats, good energy recharge, and good EM. And Xingqiu is on 4-piece Noblesse Duty with Favonius. As you can see, this team's damage in single target is 51k, which is less than our budget Sukokomon team's damage. And as expected, most of this team's damage is coming from Xiangling's Pyronado Vaporized. In the AoE version of this team with 3 targets, we have 104,000 DPS, which is even further behind our budget Sukokomon team than the single target version. And then we'll take a quick look at the rotation. We're doing Xingqiu Burst Attack, Bennett Burst Attack Skill, Xiangling Skill Attack, Sucrose Attack Skill for Guoba Swirl, Xiangling Burst, Xingqiu Skill Attack, Bennett Attack Skill, Xiangling to catch the particles and attack, Sucrose to attack and apply VV, back to Bennett for attack and skill, Xiangling to catch the particles again and attack, Sucrose to attack some more for VV, and then back to the top. If you want more information about this rotation, you can check out my 1-minute Sucrose National guide. I mentioned Guoba Swirl earlier, so I'll quickly go over what a Guoba Swirl is. If you use Xiangling skill and then you hold Elemental Vision, you can see that Guoba turns red briefly every time he breathes out fire. And this red indicates that he actually has pyro applied to him briefly. If you manage to hit him with Sucrose's elemental skill while he's red, this red haze will be generated around him, and this red haze is a pyro swirl. This pyro swirl behaves exactly like a normal pyro swirl. You can get VV shred off it, and you can deal pyro swirl damage off it. In addition to Sucrose's elemental skill, Farazan's pressurized collapse can also generate a Guoba Swirl, but Guoba Swirling is far less useful on Farazan than Sucrose. I'll end this video off by doing a rotation demonstration of the rotation that we simulated. Do note that I don't have a 4-piece Crimson Witch set that has EM main stats, so instead I'm using a 4-piece Gilded Dream set. It's not going to be as good, but it'll give you an idea of what kind of overload damage to expect from this team. Keep in mind that a well-invested crit Xiangling will still perform well in this team, and also keep in mind that Xingqiu is this team's only defensive utility. So if you can't handle playing like that, this may not be the team for you, but if you can, it's a pretty fun team.